Hello and welcome to BSB Must Reads, where we share with you the books you must be reading this month. And here I have with me Sandra Barret. Hi, Sandra.
Hello everybody.
Hello. So you are sharing today Blood Memory, which is another installment in your Jade Murphy series. I would love for you to share with everyone a little bit about you, just in case they haven't met you yet. Then I'd like to hear about Jade and your series and who you read.
I'm Sandra Barret. I live in Massachusetts with my partner and our 3 dogs. We've got 2 adult kids. One is still with us. The other is living in Boston. I've been writing for a few years now. I write predominantly science fiction, urban fantasy, that sort of thing. Let's see, what else is there? The other interesting thing about me is I do come from a very big family, so we have a lot of family in this area. And that kind of helps me as I try to formulate stories that are happening around here, which brings me to the Jade Murphy series. It's a series of novellas about a 150-year-old vampire, Jade Murphy, who lives in and around the Boston area. She's kind of socially awkward, has some anger management issues, but basically she's like an old vampire in a modern world, just trying to get by. In this series, vampires are not known, so it's something she has to still keep a secret. And the book I'm reading from now is the second one, Blood Memory, and it's about Jade and her non-binary love interests and how they kind of get in and out of trouble. Where we're starting in this story, Jade is with Beth and her friend Carrie, who is also a vampire, after Carrie had a bit of a scare. And this is the first time Jade's had anybody in her apartment, because that's kind of really out of her comfort zone. The story is told from Jade's point of view, and I'll get started with the reading. So, how do you 2 know each other? Beth asked. Was there a bit of jealousy there? Well, shit. Had anyone ever been jealous on my behalf before? I couldn't stop the grin spreading on my idiot face. I could get used to someone being proprietary. Why, yes, I sure could. I don't know what stopped Carrie from yanking my chain, but she tossed me a bone and said, "We've had some business dealings in the past. I'm a serial entrepreneur." After an hour or 2, I'd gotten used to having Beth and Carrie in my apartment. Things hadn't gone wrong in any of the dozens of ways I'd imagined. My palms stopped being sweaty. Carrie behaved herself even after I said the recliner was busted, and she had a glint in her eye that said she knew that's where I hid the mini fridge for the blood bags I'd bought from her. Beth kept up a stream of conversation that passed the time and eased my tension, but it was well past midnight already. I should go, Beth said. I'm on shift in 6 hours. Walk me downstairs? We walked down the stairs and paused in front of the frosted glass doorway. Thanks for staying, I said. They held my hands. Thank you for letting me see your apartment, even if I had to force it on you. I laughed. Yeah, sorry about that. Don't be. We're in this together, and we move at the pace that's right for both of us, remember? I nodded. Beth looked back up the stairs. Do I need to worry about her? Oh, she'll be fine. No, I mean worry. I looked in their eyes. They really were a bit jealous. I couldn't stop the grin on my face. Oh, worry. No, not at all. Carrie's not my type. Beth frowned. Because she's trans? No, because she's not you. Oh, I'm such a smooth talker, I thought. Beth wrapped me in their arms and leaned down until our lips touched. I stopped breathing, just feeling the sensation of their lips on mine. When Beth slowly pulled away, we were both flushed. I nodded goodbye, the power of speech still not returning after that kiss. So, what really happened? I asked as I plopped down on my sofa and stared at Carrie, still sitting in my broken recliner. It's polite to offer a drink to a guest before giving them the 3rd degree. I continued to stare. Okay, fine. I don't really know. I feel like someone's messing with me, you know? Human or otherwise? I asked. Human. Then what has you so freaked out? You've been a vampire for 7 years now. She glared at me. You may not remember what it's like to be human, but I still do. Human and a black trans woman. Maybe it's time you saw someone to help with that, I said. Right. I'm going to walk into a mental health clinic and say, hey, I'm a super strong vampire, but I still have PTSD from my human years. Get up, I said. What? Get up and I'll offer you that drink you wanted. You know you're sitting on my fridge. Carrie waved me off. Oh, I was just teasing. I had a good drink right before I felt this other human, like he was stalking me, and I ran for it. I sat up. Did you clean up after your drink first? Carrie folded her arms. Yes, I erased my human's memory first and healed his puncture wounds. I'm not a baby, you know. 7 vamp years old made her a baby in my book, but I settled back down. Did you see your stalker? Would you recognize him again? She looked down. I don't know, maybe. I felt like something was watching me a couple of times during the past week, but didn't pay much attention. I caught a glimpse of him once, I think. Well, right or wrong, she was freaked. You could stay here as long as you need. Carrie looked up at me with a sardonic smile. Thanks, but as soon as Beth is out of sight and sound, I'm heading home. She looked around. Cozy place you have here, but I prefer my apartment on Beacon Hill. Shit, she had some money. That was not a cheap place to live. Fine, but I'm coming back with you. I held up a hand to forestall her complaint. Turnabout is fair play, plus I could do with a few more blood bags. A few minutes later, I locked my apartment door and started up the stairs to the roof access. Carrie just stared at me. Where are you going? She asked. To the roof. We can run across the rooftops here till Sumner Tunnel and then into Boston through that. Carrie pointed down. These heels are not going clickety-clack over the rooftops of East Boston. I looked back at her. You want to walk? Uber, you ancient vampire, Uber. I texted a ride for us. Should be here by now. She turned around and walked down the stairs. Once we got to Carrie's apartment, she pulled 2 wine glasses off a counter rack and went to a black and steel appliance I didn't recognize. A moment later, she handed me a warmed glass of blood. Some of us have manners, she said with a smirk. I accepted the glass and took a sip. Perfect human temperature. What is that thing? This, she said, pointing back to the appliance I didn't recognize. It's my latest product. Very exclusive clientele, as you can imagine. But they're vampires like yourself who refrain from fresh human blood. This device caters to their needs. It has a coolant in the back to keep the blood fresh, then heats it to the temperature you set on the front panel. It's manufactured in Italy, but I own the rights for the US distribution. I finished off my glass, glad for the fresh blood. Thanks for this, but it's probably time I return to my apartment before the sun comes up. Can I call you an Uber? No thanks, but I would like a couple of blood bags to take home. I waited in the front while she went back to wrap up my order and charge my card. The knock on the front door took me by surprise. You called that Uber, didn't you? I said over my shoulder as I opened the door. It wasn't an Uber, though. I found that out when the first bullet slammed into my chest, followed by 2 more. And that's where we'll leave it.
Where did that come from? Oh my gosh. Okay. Talk about a plot twist.
Yeah.
I also love like how 2020 this is, you know, like there's Ubers, there's like coffee machines for your blood. I mean, it's perfect. I love it. Awesome.
Thanks.
Okay. So in the start of your reading, Jade was a little concerned about having people over at her apartment. So my first question is, like, what is the most interesting thing about writing a vampire who's kind of like navigating life and love and has kind of this secret and some differences, you know, not human? What are kind of some interesting things that you have to consider from her point of view when you're writing all of that?
So from Jade's point of view, it's interesting because she does have this sort of background. She's been around obviously for 150 years. So we're talking, you know, she's been in the United States. So from very early US times, rural times, and whatnot. But even more interesting to me is the idea of, in the modern age, like you talked about, it's harder to hide. I mean, how do you hide when you have to have there's cameras everywhere, you have to have a social security number, you have these bank accounts, anything else that you want to get through in life, but you can't leave a trace that you've been around for that long. So one of the things that comes up every now and then is this idea of having to change identities over that period of time. You can't be the same person. So she's been under different names at different times. But she also tries to maintain a link to, where her parents were way back when, where her mother, she still very strongly relates to her mother, though she's been passed for, well over a century.
I love that. Does she move around a lot? Because I find that in a lot of paranormals, where they have this issue where people just kind of have to, or vampires for instead have to kind of like move around, move location so that people don't catch on.
Yeah, so she has to actually do a couple of things. One is she does have to move locations because obviously she doesn't age. In this series, vampires, I should explain, vampires do actually age, but it's very slowly. So like 1 year for every 10 human years or something like that. So she was turned as a teenager. She looks, maybe just under 30 now or something like that. But obviously that doesn't work if you're in the same location. So every 20 years or so, she has to move. Yeah. But she can still be Jade Murphy. She has to be Jade Murphy in another town. But every so often, that name has to go as well, because you can't have that, you can't have a social security number that says you're 120 years old. So there's two things that go back and forth on that, and that the changes she has to make, but it also has an impact on, how do you keep your finances if everything has to go? And that kind of feeds into how she is still very much a working class vampire. She has to keep a job. She has to be able to pay rent. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so this story features a human stalker. And I'm always interested how authors who write paranormal and sci-fi fantasy deal with the kind of creature-human divide. And so I thought it was interesting that your protagonist is a vampire and kind of the bad guy in this particular story is a human stalker. Did you make that choice intentionally, make some kind of point about the morality of humans or the differences between vampires and humans?
It wasn't so much as that as exploring, what's important in this idea that was kind of hinted at in this is Carrie is a vampire now, but she wasn't always. She's a Black trans woman who has had, obviously, discrimination against her before she became a vampire, and that's still a part of who she is because she hasn't been a vampire that long. So I wanted the trouble in her life that Jade gets involved in to be another human, because I wanted that aspect of, while the vampires we tend to think of vampires as monsters or, potentially evil creatures, there's still a lot of darkness that's just in humanity itself that has nothing to do with paranormal.
Yeah, sure. That's a great point. So one of the other things that makes this series unique, it's that it's written in a shorter format. So instead of kind of your typical 75,000 word book, you have kind of like installments of the story in an ongoing way. What prompted you to write that kind of structure? And is it, do you love it, or is it sometimes frustrating trying to get like a complete story into a set word count?
Well, to say for Jade, I love it because it just leads itself to episodic. So I can put out these episodes basically, or in each novella that covers a certain storyline, a certain plot, but at the same time is slowly moving Jade's storyline along across each of the books. And it's a lot of fun to write because it's quick.
Yeah.
You know, you still have to do the same level of background work, and I'm a plot fiend, so I've got to plot myself into a stupor. It all has to still happen, but then I can really move the story fast because I only have so many words to do it. So it's really fun and really fast.
Awesome. I love it. Please do check out Blood Memory, which is the second installment of the Jade Murphy series by Sandra Barret, out this October 1st on the Bold Strokes Books website, and October 11th everywhere books are sold. Thank you so much, Sandra. This was great fun.
Thanks, everyone.